Lady, now recognize the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Austin Scott, first for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I can honestly tell you the last thing I did before I left home was to mix 15 gallons of glyphosate and spray a bunch of weeds, and I've been using that product effectively for over 30 years, and I think it's unfortunate what's happened. I think the litigation and the false narrative around that product is something that we need to pay attention to, because it's been very effective at taking something that we need off of the markets in the United States, and it's expensive. And farmers don't just buy chemicals for the sake of buying chemicals, right? I mean, and the new technology is expensive, and one of the things I don't think we talk enough about is the land-grant institutions and research, and then the extension that has to come with that research for our ag communities to produce the products that we all depend on being on the shelves when the other 98 or 99% of Americans that aren't involved in agriculture go to the grocery store. So with that said, and again, going back to the land-grant institutions, how can industry and producers more effectively partner with the land-grant institutions to not only accelerate the development of these technologies, but ensure their practical deployment on the farm, and what additional support or policy initiatives might strengthen these collaborations to benefit both the innovation and the extension that's necessary for farmer adoption? Any of you can answer that question, please.
Thank you. That's a great question. I think the first thing that we can do is recognize the role that extension does play in new product discovery, new ingredient discovery, workforce development. I'm sure in this committee, many of you had a stint in an extension lab at some point doing research, or maybe where it took a class for an extension professor. So I think recognizing that the extension's role in the supply chain process and in the innovation process is key. And I know my extension colleagues, they're sometimes strapped for that funding they need to do the work. And I think what we could do is help give back to those extension researchers and make sure that they're getting the work done in the field that needs to get done. Thank you.
Sir, we see in California, we have the University of California, and we have the University of California Ag and Natural Resources Department. We know that the research done on many of the land-grant colleges and universities does get transformed to the growers through the Ag Extension Service. We have relationships with them on farm, and we actually work with some of the researchers directly with the universities to do cutting-edge technology on our farm so that we can show other people some of the new advances that can be applicable really throughout California and the world. So having the connection between the university and the advisors is critical for getting information out to growers.
Mr. Abbott, I'm going to come to you with another question if I can, down to a minute and a half, but I do want to express one other concern that I have, and it is the accumulation of this technology by China through ChemChina, and I think we're being naive as Americans to think that allowing somebody who is now our no longer an aggressive economic competitor, but actually an adversary to control the chemicals that we need in the food supply chain, that's not going to come back to bite us. Mr. Abbott, in your testimony, you provided an overview on the challenging delays occurring at the EPA related to the regulatory review. I know you spoke to this, but with more than $500 million in post-patent and formulation improvement products stuck in that review, can you elaborate to the committee why timely access to these innovations is just as important, if not more important, than the new chemistry?
Because it puts us in a better spot. We need to remain competitive, because otherwise we just hand it over, to your point, the Chinese, right? They're going to come in and they're going to take no prisoners, so to speak, to paraphrase there. So I think to get our growers in a competitive situation, we need to make sure we continue to quickly push those through, especially when the chemistries have been around for quite some time.
Yes, sir. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. I look forward to continuing the discussion. I do think hopefully we'll see bipartisan efforts to solve these problems. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield the 1 second.
Representative Austin Scott of Georgia shared his perspective on glyphosate, a chemical herbicide widely used in Roundup, a Monsanto product linked to Hodgkin's lymphoma. He described his personal experience, noting that before leaving home he mixed 15 gallons of the herbicide and has relied on it effectively for over 3 decades. He expressed concern about the litigation and what he called a false narrative surrounding the chemical, emphasizing that these developments have restricted access to products essential for agriculture in the United States. Scott highlighted that farmers do not purchase chemicals arbitrarily and that new agricultural technologies often come with high costs. He stressed the role of land-grant institutions and extension services in translating research into practical solutions for farmers, asking how industry and producers could better collaborate with these institutions to accelerate innovation and ensure its practical deployment. He also inquired about potential policy initiatives to strengthen these partnerships for the benefit of both innovation and on-farm adoption. Witnesses responding to Scott underscored the vital role of extension programs in product discovery, ingredient development, and workforce training. They noted that many extension services face funding challenges, and supporting these programs is crucial for advancing agricultural research. Examples from California were cited, showing how universities and extension services work directly with growers to implement cutting-edge technologies on farms, demonstrating advancements applicable locally and globally. Scott also voiced concern about China's increasing control over agricultural chemicals, cautioning that allowing an adversary to dominate essential components of the food supply chain could have serious consequences for U.S. competitiveness. He further raised the issue of delays at the Environmental Protection Agency, pointing out that timely access to post-patent formulation improvements is critical, not just for introducing new chemicals, but for maintaining a competitive edge in agriculture. The discussion concluded with Scott urging bipartisan efforts to address these challenges, highlighting the need to support both farmers and innovation to safeguard the U.S. agricultural sector.